talk to each other. But I had to point out that there is one independent grant writer in the Pacific Northwest, Helen Robertson, who wrote a letter to the GPA staff and board saying, do more. So you all can read that at your leisure. I will share this presentation with you so you can click through all the links. But I did want to point that out. I did want to point out that members are demanding more advocacy from GPA headquarters leadership. And then also since that time, National Council of Nonprofits did put out a helpful PDF chart that is called, and linked to the middle here, Executive Orders Affecting Charitable Nonprofits. So they have their resource on that as well. Looks to be about, 24 pages. So we do have links to all of the webinars that we discussed today. We have some other resources, including NAM and their updates on federal policies. Next week, there's going to be a live webinar hosted by Forvis Mazars called Understanding the Impact of Federal Freeze on Grant Funding. Grant Station also has a page about this. And then there is this website called the Impact Project, which is kind of reiterating these things with a more data rich, with more data, I'll put it that way. So please, what is up, everybody? What are you thinking? What are your reflections about this? What resources can you share with your fellow grant professionals in our remaining 14 minutes?
Don't everybody clamor at once. We can go one at a time. It's okay. Hey, Natalie.
Hey,
You popped up.
I've been here. I've just kept my camera off. So I guess one thing that really surprised me, because I think I sat in on all of these webinars at some point and even saw the same ones offered through a couple different
Yeah.
things. But one thing that surprised me was the recommendation to request no cost extensions. And partly because we have requested a no cost extension and we requested it like in December, and we still have not heard back, and our grant is ending. And so we think that that department, it's a USDA grant, and we're thinking that they are on a gag, like they can't tell it or do anything. It's yeah, it's a little frustrating. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of just throw that out there since that's been our experience. Is it seems like a lot of departments are on a hold or they're on a gag order that is not official, and they just aren't responding.
You know,
I've seen that as well. I think that gag order thing is real. I've had agencies tell us straight up, in the past, we've all talked to all of the recipients in one sort of email, but we're not doing that anymore. We'll send us your specific questions, and then, you don't get any response. And to the point of those no cost extensions, it's like, you can request them whether or not they're going to do anything about it. I think nobody's laboring under that assumption, but I guess just in the sense of trying something when you're feeling helpless, maybe, who knows? But we have had agencies do extensions that like on their own accord, which was nice. But I'm not optimistic of that the ones that we are submitting are going to be responsive.
Yeah, I mean, I've put through no cost extensions, during normal times, relatively normal times, that took 3 months to get a response. Even, I mean, with the DOJ, for example. So unsurprisingly, during all this upheaval, it would be even further delayed. Doesn't help um, the the anxiety, but I do think there is something to be said for having time-stamped efforts. And so if in the end they're like, oh, well, your grant's already over, or this is, we already asked about this, or, your grant ended and it's too late. We've already processed this, whatever. I do know that there is an appeal process, you know, at some point having the stamps have to account for something, I would think. I mean, it is all it's all you can do, right? So, um, you're doing all you can do, and that's all you can do, right? So, I see that we have a couple, at least one person from the state of Nebraska, and so I wanted to know if anybody is willing to speak um, about kind of what their experiences have been when it comes to their interactions with the federal agencies that they work with, if they've experienced delays, or if it hasn't affected them. And because I know that there are some federal agencies where it hasn't they haven't gotten to it yet. I know that ACF is not one of them. um uh that was pretty much a bloodbath in terms of um staffing. But you know as far as we know, a lot of our grants at NCHS, they are federal pass-through grants, right? So we always work with our state uh, officials to get these federal grants administered. So far, it's been business as usual. Thankfully, I think because it's we've got that extra buffer, obviously with the state, but yeah, I can't. I know that it would be different if we had any direct federal grants. Right now, we've been really lucky in that respect.
Hi, this is Michelle Hartnett.
Hi.
Hi, and I work for the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and the program that I primarily work on was an ARPA funded program, and so those funds were obligated, back in 2020, 2021, and at this point, and I would say that probably most of your contacts, whether that's through a state agency or a federal agency, my guess is that the non-response is not that I think they probably know about as little as you do at this point. And so I think Noelle's recommendation to, document your efforts is a good one. We have not been told that anything is changing at this point, and so it's business as usual for us. Um, but I think what the next 6 months holds will be very telling. But as far as our interaction goes with our awardees, it's like I said, business as usual. Again, most of the awards that I have are capital construction projects. So those are pretty straightforward. They're not necessarily in the bullseye of, some of the targeted classes of grants that are being challenged at this point. Um, but we have heard some from Treasury, and it's been pretty quiet. And I think they are operating under a business as usual um, status as well until they are told otherwise. But I do know that there's been a lot of uncertainty at the federal level, and staffing issues too that certainly has created a lot of challenges for everyone. But I think by and large, you will find that your contacts with both state government and your federal agencies, they are your advocates as well, and want to help you as much as they can, given the instructions that they're given. So a lot of times our hands are tied, either because of statute or, program regulations, things like that. And so I think, one of the key takeaways from the reviews that you guys did was that you really should be knowledgeable about your program. Make sure you're reading your award agreements, and what you are entitled to, and if there's recourse, reach out to your state or your federal contact. I understand that, you're not getting a lot of response at this point. And like I said, my guess is that if you're not getting a response, it's not that they don't want to be helpful. It's just that they don't know what to tell you at this point. So that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you, Michelle. That is super, super helpful and insightful. I really appreciate you speaking up, and thank you for your work at DED too. I had a friend of mine who worked at DED for the past few years. She's been gone now for a couple of years, but you guys do amazing things for our state, and I appreciate it. So, especially with that ARPA funding, that was wonderful. So thank you very much. And I'm so glad you were here.
Thanks. I'm a big advocate for nonprofits, and so that's really why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, is to make sure that the nonprofits that applied for this funding are getting getting that funding. And yes, there are lots of hoops that we have to sometimes jump through to get there, but our goal is always to document the awards in a way that there is no threat of clawback, at some future date, and to minimize, audit findings as well. I think that's the other thing in all of this, is that, it's going to kind of depend on how these programs and individual awards are audited at some point. So I think you're very, very very, very advisable to be documenting everything. I think your approach of, trying to maybe eliminate language that would raise red flags in your reporting, things like that. And it's not that you're trying to be, dishonest or anything like that.
Right.
But it's a matter of, again, these funds were obligated for a certain purpose, and you are trying to carry out your work, and so you have to do the best with what you have at the time. So I think being knowledgeable about your program, about the requirements, make sure you're on top of your reporting and that you're documenting things as you go, and use those state and federal contacts as resources.
All good things. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's 12:58, everybody. So I just want to thank you all again and respect your time. We can all end this call before 1 p.m. Central Time. But I want to let you know that we have some upcoming events. Check them out at gpanebraska.blog. Our next event is May 29th, and that is called, oh my gosh, Noelle, do you have the name of that? It's got a great name.
It does.
Yeah,
that means
it's like from frazzled to,
oh, from frazzled to focus. Yes.
yeah,
I
from frazzled
forgot.
to
Me and Chat GPT had a fun
focus.
brainstorming sesh.
Well, hey,